Hello gardeners! Today I'm excited to be at the New Jersey Botanical Garden where we are taking a look at the wildflower garden here. And Darlene Nowak is going to tell us all about it. So Darlene, tell us a little bit about yourself and the garden and the work you've been doing here.
Okay, well, I got to Master Gardener status a number of years ago, and as part of the commitment to those studies, one has to do a lot of volunteer time. So having driven in traffic south and east in Passaic County my entire life, I decided to go north. And here I am at the Botanical Garden of New Jersey, Skylands. And this is just one of our many gardens here at Skylands, but this is what I fell in love with. And it is a woodland wildflower garden. So we have a little bit of sun, but a lot of what we do is with shade plants and spring ephemerals. We will see some of evidence of spring ephemerals today, and a lot of ferns, and because it's the middle of June, our big season is coming to a close until the beginning of fall when we come out in full color again. So I invite everyone to come up and take a walk in the Woodland Wildflower Garden at Skylands.
All right, so fantastic. Let's take a look at the plants here.
Native to the Northeast really means from like Maryland, Northern Virginia, all the way up. And so some of our native plants here at Skylands come from that region originally. This is lovingly known twin leaf because it looks like two leaves. Actually, it's one leaf held together by a very thin filament in the middle. It blooms beautiful white little flower with a yellow center early in spring. It'll only bloom for up to a week if the weather is nice. It's called Jeffersonia diploma because President Jefferson at Monticello was the one who discovered it, and if you discover it, you get to give it its name. The curiosity of it is after it flowers, it creates these, they look very much like baby rattles. And as they mature, they fill with seeds, and we've never seen it here at the garden, but we know from one day to the next, they can blow their top. They literally puff themselves open and spit their seeds all over the place, and you get more twin leaf underneath. But they're a wonderful curiosity. Some people say it blooms on Jefferson's birthday every year. I'm not sure I believe that. It's a fun plant to have, and it has a blue-green cast, which is really nice. Green and gold, otherwise known as chrysogonum to the informed, is a gorgeous little plant that everybody should own because it blooms from spring right through to the first killing frost.
And as far as sun requirements, because usually when we see plants like this, how much sun would you say it requires?
It needs dappled sunlight in the day. It gets no direct sun in this location.
This is one of an impressive pair of eagles that welcomes visitors to Skylands. There are several gardens here, including a hummingbird and butterfly garden. For those new to Native Plant Channel, this YouTube channel exists to help gardeners learn about native plants in order to create more eco-friendly gardens. Today we are only focusing on the wildflower garden as it uses primarily native plants. As we continue to lose natural habitats that benefit our pollinators and birds, gardeners play a pivotal role in creating habitat for insects that are crucial to our survival. After all, 1 in 3 bites humans eat are produced by pollinators who need native plants to survive. I encourage you to subscribe to Native Plant Channel, and thank you for learning about native plants and improving our ecosystems through what you plant right in your garden. Please click the subscribe button and the bell below, and also look for Native Plant Channel on Facebook as we continue our garden tour and have so many more plants to share with you.
We have quite a collection of fern here at the garden, and fern can be very difficult to identify if you don't know how to count sori on the bottom of the leaves and all kinds of technical things. But there are a few that everybody can easily identify. One is the one we're looking at. It's called interrupted fern, because the fern comes up and pretty soon it almost looks like its leaflets are dying because there are brown spots. And then the fern continues. Those brown spots aren't dying pieces. They are actually the fertile portion of the fern. Another interesting fern that is nearby is Christmas fern. It's an evergreen called Christmas fern because colonists used to use it to decorate during the holidays. And the interesting part, you can always identify it because if you can see it, it looks like the heel of a stocking. So every little leaflet on the Christmas fern is green all year, and each little piece looks like a Christmas stocking.
Isn't that fascinating?
Isn't that amazing? Okay, we're at a part of our garden that has a few little trilliums. Trillium, tricycle means three. So there are many different kinds of trillium that are native to our part of the woods. And this one is a toad trillium, called that because of the coloration on the leaves. There is a yellow variety here and a red variety right next to it. But speaking of three, there's something else that we'll look at further down the path. You have to figure out whether the three is a trillium or whether the three is a jack-in-the-pulpit. And the way to know the difference is the trillium have spatially equal leaves, and the jack-in-the-pulpit, this is a very young one, so it doesn't have a jack yet, has a 180-degree spread with a 90-degree leaf. So that's the way you can tell the difference between jack-in-the-pulpits and trilliums.
Fantastic! Here on Native Plant Channel, you get to learn all this cool stuff.
Okay, we're looking at eastern blue star. For those of you who have deer issues, we're happy to report that this has been standing for years. And do we have deer issues here at the garden? So I encourage people to come back in the fall, because even though most of our grand spring wildflowers are most impressive, our fall flowers are also impressive in bloom. You're looking at a Joe Pye weed stand, which is just gorgeous and attracts butterflies from everywhere, starting end of August through September.
Yes, Joe Pye is an excellent plant for those of you looking to encourage pollinators, because it attracts not only butterflies, but many other insects as well.
Okay. We're looking at skunk cabbage, which is, of course, is a native. Our garden has two kinds, the native kind to New Jersey and also the skunk cabbage, which is a western skunk cabbage that has, instead of the hand grenade flower, it has a beautiful yellow flower. But these are our natives, and if you don't like skunk cabbage and you want to dig them up, you may have a problem, because if you put your arms up and twirl around, you've just spun the depth and distance of the roots. So they're very difficult to get rid of, but they're wonderful for our woodland wildflower garden.
Yes, and not only that, but for wet areas, you know, people grow hostas for their wide, beautiful leaves, so why not grow skunk cabbage instead, which is a native and would help out our pollinators very early on in the spring.
Early in the spring, the flower comes up and opens up, and it's the color of rotting meat. It's a magenta color, as a lot of things are in the spring, to attract insects, crawling insects, flies, ants, etc. And they get attracted to it because of the scent and also because of the heat that it produces. If you come up here with snow on the ground, you might see the flowers of the skunk cabbage coming right through the snow. This is a royal fern, and it's a beautiful, light, airy fern, which I love. And it's interesting for lots of reasons. One is if you have a wet area, royal fern is a great one to grow. But if you can zone in and look at all of the fertile part of the royal fern, it's amazing. Another fern that's easy to identify if its fertile fronds are poking up is cinnamon fern, called cinnamon fern, not because of that this resembles a cinnamon stick, but it has to do with the color of cinnamon, hence cinnamon fern.
Ah, pretty cool. Look at that.
Black cohosh. You don't see a lot black about it. I can't give you the full story about why it has that name. When I first came to this garden, I loved it because tall spikes of candelabra flowers appear in late summer, early fall. And I wanted to know what the name was, and I finally learned how to say Cimicifuga, and then botanists changed the name.
Just look at the beautiful views here in the woodland. And for those of you wondering about shade plants, there are many plants that will grow in the shade, including, look at the bright colors there in the background. In a wooded area, take a look at what a showstopper this flame azalea is. It gets its name because the flowers are said to resemble candle flames. It's supposed to grow 4 to 8 feet tall, but this one is a bit taller. It does need a little bit of sun, so if you have a little opening of sun, it's just gorgeous.
Okay, we're looking at green. Lots and lots of green. This happens to be jewelweed. And of the thousands of impatiens that pop up in people's gardens throughout New Jersey, this is the one impatient that is native. And it's really a kind of interesting plant because they all pop up at the same time. And they'll continue to grow. And they have some, they're known as touch-me-nots because kids like to play with them and watch the seeds disperse. But it's a favorite plant of deer, and it's been said that it will alleviate some of the itch of poison ivy. However, most medical research shows that soap and water does just as well. All right, we're looking in the bright sunlight, probably the last bunchberry to bloom in the garden. That pretty white flower is actually not the flower. The flowers are the little things in the center. The white part are the bracts that surround the flower. Anyway, bunchberry, Cornus canadensis, I believe, is native to this part of the world, and it's somewhat endangered. We didn't hide it back here. It hid itself in this little corner, but we're trying to protect it. Sometimes you'll see it with 4 leaves, and sometimes you'll see it with 6, 6 or more. The 4-leafed bunchberry are immature and cannot reproduce yet. The ones with 6 leaves are mature and fertile and will be able to be pollinated, and they'll spread. In the fall, all of the bunchberry that had flowers will create bright red berries, and you can see them from a distance. They're very important for migrating birds that are trying to get enough energy to make the route back to wherever they came from or away for the winter. So it's a very important plant in our native environment because of its relationship with birds. Looking at a patch of claytonia. which is commonly known as blue bead lily. And in the spring, it comes up like a fuzzy vase out of the ground. And it's gorgeous in all seasons. Right now, it has had its white flower ball on top, and it's using all of its energy to create sapphire blue beads on the top of each one of those little spouts. Whether or not it gets blue beads depends on how cold it is in the winter, because it likes cold winters and snow cover, and whether or not the animals will leave them long enough for you to see them. Okay, we're looking at two low-lying New Jersey native shrubs. One is blue cohosh, which is ready to develop its sapphire blue berries, which birds and animals love. And right next to it, we have a baneberry. Both red baneberry and the doll's eyes white baneberry have little flowers. I'm not positive which one this is right now, but the red baneberry obviously has those gorgeous bright flowers, and the white baneberry has flowers that are commonly called doll's eyes because they look like the old China dolls. We're looking at a patch of green that seems to be nothing but weeds. However, all of these leaves can get as large as dinner plates. And these leaves are storing energy to go back into the root of a native plant called bloodroot, which comes up early in the spring like a wrapped cigar coming out of the ground, opening to the most beautiful, bright white flower with a gorgeous yellow center. All right, we're looking at a nice stand of ostrich fern, which are identifiable. It's not the only fern that has a vase shape, but that's one of the identifying characteristics of ostrich fern. The other thing is these are the ones that if you go to a nice garden market early in the spring, you'll be able to buy fronds. Fern fronds to saute and have with butter and salt and pepper. They're wonderful. This is the only fern that produces fronds we can eat. All the rest of them have furry fronds, and they are not good on the tongue. So, all right, we saw some trilliums earlier. We saw the toad trillium with the beautiful yellow blossoms, and here we have a great patch of wake robin trillium. Please come back in the spring to see them at their peak.
All right, here we're looking at native ginger. So if you're thinking of a ground cover for shade, look at the beautiful heart-shaped leaves. And Darlene, what else can you tell us about native ginger?
This is not culinary ginger. This is not in the family of skunk cabbage, but it comes up not quite as early as skunk cabbage, but it does have flowers like skunk cabbage that are close to the ground, and it has that same magenta coloring to the flower so that the early insects that pollinate it, bees, flies, and ants, creepy crawlies, can get to the flower early. The native ginger has a very matte look about it. You may find in nurseries that they sell European ginger, which always looks shiny on the surface. I love the native ginger. The flowers are gorgeous in the spring. A good choice for ground cover is always to look for native alternatives to things you can buy which are hybrid. For instance, the pachysandra that most people have in their yard have become infested with some kind of fungus or disease. But our native pachysandra, which covers this area, has been here for forever and is as healthy as it can be. It has the same pretty bottle brush flowers in the spring, but it's native to our area.
Let's take a look at some of the beautiful scenery here with these small creeks and brooks that are throughout this property. And here we have another example of the royal fern.
So, Darlene, thank you so much for everything that you've taught us today. And gardeners, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate the things that you are doing to include natives in your gardens at home in order to make our ecosystems function a little better. We all have a role to play in including natives. So thank you so much for all you've done for us today.
You're welcome, and I invite everybody who sees this to come and visit us at the Skylands, New Jersey Botanical Garden.